Welcome back to another episode of the Lendr podcast. I'm Bryce Matheson, and as always, this episode is brought to you by Lendr. Lendr is a loan management software tool designed to help you with every aspect of your business, from origination to servicing to payoff. Lendr helps you with document generation, helps you with collecting monthly payments, dispersing monthly payments to your investors, taking in new loan applications, giving your borrowers a portal that they can log into, giving your investors a portal that they can log into. Pretty much every aspect of everything that you do inside of your lending business can be done and facilitated through Lendr. You can check that out by going to joinlendr.com. That's Lendr, joinlendr.com. Now, onto the episode. Hey everyone, this week's episode is actually a cross post from an interview that I did on a different podcast. That's the Lendr's Playbook podcast with Matt Rosen. He gave me permission to take this and cross post it because I think it would be valuable to kind of hear a little bit more about our background and our story and how we got started. And then we go into some other things with Lendr and talk about Matt and his background and things as well. So Matt is the owner and operator of the American Lending Conference, which we went to for the first time this year, which was incredible. So on top of that, Matt has a ton of experience with flipping houses and real estate and all sorts of different things like that. So it was fun to have him interview us. And then again, like I said, he's given us permission to take this and cross post it. But definitely go check out Matt and what he's doing, especially with the American Lending Conference, and go listen to his podcast as well. The Lendr's Playbook podcast it's incredible. Just talking to lots and lots of different people in the private lending industry in the space and see what they're doing.
Today, we're sitting down with Bryce Matheson, founder of Lendr, Lendr, a company that's transforming how private lenders run their businesses. So if you've ever felt bogged down by spreadsheets, overwhelmed by managing multiple tools, tasks, or just stuck trying to scale your business, this conversation is going to be extremely beneficial for you. So without further ado, let's bring on Bryce Matheson. Bryce, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm very excited to be here. This is great.
This is great. We're super excited because you're one of our newest conference sponsors. Super excited to hear more about your product because with all the research I did on your website, which is beautiful, by the way, great website.
Thank you.
It's such a big value add to the growing community that we have. So to unpack that is just going to be a treat of mine, and I'm sure the listener is going to get a lot out of that too.
Well, I hope so. I hope I can, provide some value, but we'll see.
No pressure.
We'll see how this goes, right?
So, yeah, for sure. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and then from there, I guess we can unpack more.
Sure. So we started in real estate back in 2016 or so. So obviously, like, the landscape now looks very, very different than it did about 10 years ago. But we kind of got started in real estate just out of desperation. I was working as just a lowly IT tech guy at the time, fresh out of college, and I was broke. And I'd kind of heard that real estate was the promised land as far as passive income and all that. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, let's do this. So we started buying rentals, did that for a couple of years, found out that was the most miserable thing we've ever done. And so then we moved over to, well, I mean, it's just
of it.
Just being a landlord. Yeah. The term slumlord is very accurate, mainly just because you're dealing with slummy people in the slums, and it's just, I don't know, it's not, not for us. So we slowly transitioned out of the rentals over into flipping, which is just kind of a very natural progression, right? You see a lot of people who do that. For me, it was just more gratifying, better profit. You didn't have to deal with tenants or toilets or, all that kind of stuff. And then right around COVID timeframe, we had a project that was supposed to be a killer project. We were supposed to make a ton of money on it, and we ended up losing about $50,000 on that project. And I remember looking at the settlement statement when it was all said and done, and my private money lender made about $25,000 on that project. So we lost a ton of money. He made some money. And I was like, okay, so I should probably look into becoming a private lender. And so that was kind of the natural progression of where we started and where we're at now, and which has kind of led into building the software and some other tools and things, which I'm sure we'll get into.
So you were young. You were a young entrepreneur, I guess, right? And you got into real estate.
Yeah, I was like 2023, fresh out of school.
That's awesome. Okay. You found out that rentals wasn't your thing. Um, Especially in nowadays market. I mean, I think rentals are they're just harder to come by to have a good cash flowing property. To get a good cash flowing property, you're gonna have to be in the, kind of like B2C class property neighborhoods and such, maybe under, this is from my, from what I'm gathering is under $200,000 purchase price, that type of thing. I live in Hawaii, and so finding a cash flow property out here is
Next to
you'll
impossible.
yeah, you'll make the front news, like you'll be on the news if you find a cash flow property. Everybody in the world will know, like, how is this possible? There's no way.
Well, but see, back in like 2016, it was funny because I remember like scrutinizing over the numbers. I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work, and like quite literally any house that you bought back then would cash flow. Like, but
Oh
I was
yeah,
so worried, and so in hindsight, 2020, everything was just like, wow, I should have bought 1,000 of these, but you were just, you only know what you know, and so
sure.
and that's not to say that like we didn't do well. We did very well, and we made a good amount of money. But um, after a while, I started to realize that rental properties, A, weren't necessarily a good fit for us, and B, I think there are, and still to this day, I think there are quicker ways to build wealth.
Yeah, sure, sure. So then you got into flipping. Were you taking ownership of these properties, or were you selling the paper to another investor, or how?
No, we were actively like purchasing, renovating, and then flipping them.
Okay.
We got really into it mainly because so I enjoyed the construction side of things. I like the framing, the drywall, and all that. And then my wife would she'd get really into the design. She'd like the accent
Mm,
walls and picking out the wallpaper and the paint color and making it all cutesy and pretty. So she got really into that. So it was a kind of a match made in heaven. She did that. I did the construction side. And then obviously we'd list them and sell them and move on to the next one.
perfect. I love it. All right. So you're flipping, right? You're making some money up until the point where, you guys lose some money and you realize, okay, the only one who really made out on this deal was the private lender, right?
Right.
Um, and then you decided to become a private lender. Now, I'm assuming that that you kind of stockpiled some cash to pursue this. So tell me, what does that transition look like when you decided to like look into this?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's not like we just one day decided, okay, we're done flipping. It was more like I saw the writing on the wall and I was like, okay, this might be a good next step. And so we continued flipping for probably 2.5 to 3 years after that. But there was a point where I had kind of a lull where I didn't have, most of the time we'd have four, five, six projects running simultaneously. We had a little bit of a lull where we didn't have an upcoming project, and so I just had some cash sitting on the side.
I
So
see.
we had a buddy of mine who was saying, "Hey, it doesn't, if you don't have anything, uh, any chance you want to help me fund this project?" And we said, "Sure." So we became the lender on his project. We funded that one, and it was quite literally mailbox money. Like we funded it. It was a 6 month note. We got paychecks, and the project completed and closed and paid off. And I was like, "Wow, this is amazing. I got to do more of this." And so that's
Yeah.
when the transition really, really began.
Wow. Okay. Okay. That's fantastic. Were you like the only lender on that deal, or were you one of like five other people, or?
No, it was us 100%. Yeah, we funded that
Nice,
solely.
nice. Okay. Okay. All right. Fantastic. All right. So, so tell us about I guess we'll maybe fast forward a little bit. You became a lender, and tell us about your company right now. What do you do, who you are, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so we still have our own active private lending company. We do that in tandem with the software company.
That's great.
We run this software company called Lendr. That's Lendr. And my professional career, like I went to school for tech and IT. I worked as a government contractor for 10 or 12 years for the Department of Homeland Security. So I've always been in the tech space, the IT industry, and we would always just do real estate on the side. And so now when we moved over to the lending side of things, I noticed that I didn't really love the existing software tools that were out there to become a private lender. If you're doing one or two or three loans, Excel is fine, right? You can manage everything, but
Sure.
once it starts to scale and you're starting to deal with other people's capital and you're starting to have 15, 20, 25 loans on the books, it gets really cumbersome trying to manage all the different moving pieces and the underwriting and everything. And so there were existing software tools out there, and I demoed them all, and I hated them all. And I was like, this is not how it should be. And so that was the inception of the company, and here we are now, about 4 years later, and we're actively running the tool.
Yeah, yeah. What were some of the things that you just couldn't stand about? I mean, we're not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I mean, there's tools and stuff out there, right? But
Sure.
was it that you just couldn't stand, that you hated?
I know this is dumb, but for me, I have to have a really pretty, sexy user interface. There's a
Sure,
lot of these
I'm
like
with you.
financial. Are you okay? It's
Yeah,
not just me, but if I'm going to be inside of a tool all day
yeah.
long and I have to stare at this, it can't be ugly. And
I'm so glad you brought this up. I
they're
forgot.
just
Yeah,
yeah, it drives me nuts. I cannot stand it. Like if it is just and it's not just the user interface, but like it helps, right? But if it's just clunky and bloated and convoluted, which I found a lot of these tools were, they were trying to be kind of this Swiss Army knife. They were trying to cater to traditional, like the traditional mortgage industry, and then they would try and do, private financing of agriculture equipment, or you know what I mean? Like it was just
yeah,
this kind of catch-all blanket where, hey, if you issue a loan, let's help you with it. And that was not exactly what I wanted. I wanted something that was very specific for the private lending industry.
yeah. Sure. Okay. Okay. It's such an interesting point that you brought up, and it kind of ties along with the messaging that a lot of companies miss. And I think that their messaging is very unclear and it's confusing. And it's, a confused mind will always stop in its tracks. So if you have
Mm.
a user using your product and there's a tiny bit of confusion, they're just going to stop. They're not going to move forward. And that means they're not going to make a decision. They're not going to do really anything. So when you're talking about a user interface that's clean and simple and like tied in directly to your niche, that's a I hope somebody gets that, because for me that's a huge takeaway, to understand that you got to have a really good, clear message for the end user at all times.
Yes.
No matter if you're in an elevator or if you have a website that someone's looking at, or you're inside a software, the user interface is kind of like all over the place, and it takes you a thousand years to figure out your how to use this thing. Um,
Right. Well, and
so
you have to think about who like the primary demographic is too, right? Like you look at the average private lender, most private lenders do not have $200 million on the balance sheet.
no,
Most private lenders are small mom and pop, you know, just everyday people who have typically a couple million of their own capital sitting on the side, and then maybe a couple million of friends and family as well. And they're really just looking for a simple solution to manage and track all this and make sure that everything is, done by the book down to the penny, and you can track where everything's at. But all of these humongous like financial analysis reporting tools with all these convoluted metrics and
yeah,
bells
yeah,
and whistles,
right,
because you're catering to institutional capital,
yeah.
that's not our market, and that's not who we're catering towards.
I got it. Okay. Okay, good, good. So this product then would be best used for that small to medium sized private lender, or even the larger institutions a little bit, or
I think that we could go up. Like we have lenders every like as small as $500,000 in capital, all the way up to about 150 million. Anything above
okay.
that, you may want something a little bit more robust that has a couple more features. But for the most part, I feel like we've got just about everything that you would need.
Yeah. So in essence, you were actually like in a way scratching your own itch when you designed this product.
Absolutely.
Yep. I love it. What a great way to start a business. Really is.
And I think honestly, it's the only way to start a business is if you are not the primary user of your product, I don't think it's going to be effective, because I have built products in industries where I was not the primary user or I didn't understand how it worked,
Sure.
and it's not a good fit. And I use my product every single day, and so I take my own wants and feedback, combine that with customer and user feedback, and you combine that together and you get a really great product.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, because you completely 1000% believe in what you're doing and saying because like you're using it, right?
Yes.
Okay, if you could walk us through how your company simplifies kind of that day-to-day operations that a private lender would undergo, using using this your product.
Yeah. How much time do you have?
Yeah, no, no, I know,
So
right. I get it for sure.
no, but I was just gonna say like most again, like I said earlier, most private lenders are small mom and pop and they don't have a lot of systems in place necessarily. And so they may not really know where all of their leads are coming from. And they may not have like a unified way to collect these loan applications and keep tabs on borrowers and investors. And so somebody might call them on a phone and say, "Hey, can you fund this deal?" And then somebody would send it over email, and then somebody will send it over Facebook, and there's just not a unified like funnel, right? So, Lendr, the whole goal is to quite literally be the start to finish flow for any private lender. So, for example, we do everything from taking in the loan, underwriting the loan, doing all of the loan documentation, generating your loan docs that you'll give to the title company, handling, moving that into servicing, collecting the monthly payments via ACH, handling draw requests, servicing the loan, paying off
Wow.
the loan, and then recycling that capital into new deals. So it really is like soup to nuts all the way start to finish.
That's so incredible. That is awesome. Yeah, because a lot of lenders are doing these things manually on themselves. And a lot of these lenders have either another job or another life that they want to live, but yet they're trying to service their loans and they're trying to do all these tasks that they're just not that great at doing, and it's taking a lot of time. Um, that's incredible. Okay.
So here's an example, and this is actually why this was the story that really like was the inception of the product. So I when I was doing, two, three, four loans, basically what the process was I got my doc set. I had my deed of trust, my promissory note, my personal guarantee. Like I had all of those drafted up by my attorney, right? And then what I would do is anytime I had a new loan, I would take my template and I would just change out the borrower's name and the LLC and their address and name and loan amount and date and all that kind of stuff. And then what I would do is I would take that document and I would send it off to the title company. And then the title company would come back and they would say, "Well, hey, you missed this thing. And oh, by the way, these like the borrower's name is mismatched because I forgot
Right.
to change it here, but not here." And it was just kind of this huge nightmare. So, A, it was very unprofessional because I sent over docs that were incorrect. And B, it was a lot of time. It would take me at least an hour to do a doc set and make sure that everything was,
Sure.
accurate.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of back and forth. And now, inside of Lendr, we built a document generation piece where quite literally you put in your template, you click a button, and in 3 seconds you have your doc set. And it's designed for that loan with all the addresses, the numbers, everything balances, everything is perfect. And then you send it off to the title company. Or say I need um,
Wow.
a, a payoff statement. A borrower is paying off their loan. How much do I owe? You click a button, it says, "This is what you owe." You give it to title and you're done. So just
Wow.
things like that are just repeatable that you do so frequently that you need as just everyday part of your business. That's the goal, is just to automate this and make sure that it is super systematized.
And it gives you that confidence too that these documents and everything is accurate and correct as opposed to when I do
Did I
things like
miss
that,
something?
it's
Yep.
human error and I would almost guarantee I'm going to make a mistake.
Yep.
So
Yep.
when you're dealing with that many numbers and different business names, like it could be ABC Lending, comma LLC, but the ABC Lending doesn't have the comma on the darn document, and now you just have to go back and forth and all these things. Like, like you have to figure all that stuff out. So having that system in place, it's so refreshing to hear.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's as business grows, things get more convoluted. So like if you're funding $100,000 loan and you have one investor who is underwrite or like funding the underlying loan, it's pretty cookie cutter, right? Like you're paying this guy 10, 12% easy. But what happens if it's a $400,000 loan and you've got 14 investors on that loan? Oh, and
Sure.
by the way, they all have different interest rates. Oh, and on top of that, you have different interest tranches. So you're going to pay this investor
Yeah.
9% for the first 2 months and then 10% for the remaining 4 months. What happens there? Oh, and by the way, then there's an extension on this. So what happened? Like there's just
Yeah.
so many different moving pieces. And if you are not like on the ball tracking all of this, you can very, very easily miss things. And so that's the goal is let the software handle it so you don't even have to think about it.
Absolutely. Would this also be a good product for real estate investors that are raising capital from friends and family and other, people that they're trying to gain money from?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So, a core component of the product is our investor portals, and so it's got kind of a treasury management piece in there. And so, if you're raising capital from friends and family, that's one of the big things that we offer is that there is that investor portal. Your investors, whether it is friends and family or third party individuals that you don't really know that intimately, they can log into their portal at any time. They can see all of their where all of their funds are at down to the penny. They can see you're invested in these deals. These are the interest rates that you're earning. This is the earnest that you've been paid out thus far. This is what's pending. Just again, an easier way to track everything. And then on top of that, if you have investors like maybe grandma or grandpa who are less than tech savvy, you can also enable it just so it automatically sends them an investor statement, once a month or once a quarter, whenever you decide.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really good. And that will help real estate investors or someone who's raising capital. Really, it could be a real estate investor or even probably a fund manager, right? Like
Sure.
somebody that's just raising capital. That gives the confidence piece back to the investor that you have this system backing them, and there's clear reporting that they can see, and they can see their money, where it's at, what it's doing, where we're at in the project, and all that kind of stuff. So
Well, and it instills a lot of confidence on it for your investors too, right? Because if you had an investor who reached out to you and said, "Hey, can you tell me where all my money's at?" and you're like, okay, yeah, it's on an Excel document on my computer." Like, well, that doesn't instill a lot of confidence, right? Whereas you can be like, "Oh yeah, just log into your portal. You can see all the transaction history, everything for the last forever. You can go back and see down to the penny where everything's at."
yeah,
And that alone has helped us raise quite literally millions of dollars for our own private lending operation.
yeah, right, right, right. Okay, that's so good. So for many years, we've been working with and dealing with other, real estate fund managers that their biggest hurdle is raising capital, and they feel that they just like every real estate every real estate professional out there feels like their deal that they have on their desk is the best deal like since sliced bread, and all they need to do is get their PowerPoint in front of the right investors, when really all those investors want to see is something that you have, a true tracking system that they can monitor and see what you're up to, exactly what you just said. So I think this is one of those big keys to unlocking the ways to raise capital much faster and much more efficient than tradition than typically having a little networking event and trying to like recruit money from friends and family.
I
I mean,
agree.
you can do those things, right? But like adding this into the mix, I mean, think about it.
You
If
know
you're an
what's
investor and you see these things, you're like, oh, why wouldn't I not? This
well, you
makes
know what's
complete
interesting
sense.
is like everybody intuitively like so you start raising capital, the first thing you do is go build your pitch deck, right? That's what everybody does. I have never been sent a pitch deck and then I've never read through someone's pitch deck and then been blown away and be like, take my money.
Oh yeah,
I never. But like intuitively, that's what everybody thinks. Like, I'm going to send you this pitch deck, and
you're gonna
you're going to get an
love it.
able back that says,
Yeah,
"Yes, here's 100 grand."
yeah,
When has that ever happened? No, of course not.
never.
So a lot of it just people work with people that they know, like, and trust. That's all
Yeah,
it is. And
sure.
so if you can build that rapport, building rapport requires a lot more than a PowerPoint presentation.
It really does. Yeah, yeah, it really does. Absolutely. Okay, so these are all exciting, really, really exciting things. I can't wait to share this with a lot more people in our industry. But if you were to kind of like paint a picture, what does that transformation look like when someone switches from your typical Google Sheets and Google Drive type of a work environment to your platform? Like, what are some of those big practical changes that you've seen in someone's business?
That's a great question. So most of the customers that onboard to the platform do come from what we call like a Google Sheets empire. They're
Yeah.
just they're in spreadsheet hell, and it's a nightmare.
Yep.
And so a lot of it really is just the time savings. And I'm not exaggerating. Quite literally, I spend maybe 1 to 2 hours per week managing my private lending business. I spend significantly more time working on the software company itself.
Sure.
But as far as like onboarding new borrowers, issuing loans, underwriting, seriously, I spend maybe an hour or two per week because the platform just handles it all for me. We
Wow.
touched on it a little bit earlier, but just everything from taking in the application, underwriting it, doing the doc prep, communicating with title, funding that loan, all of that can be done in 10 minutes through the tool.
Wow.
So it's just all of this, just like manual drudgery work that you would have to do previously is just done. And then, for example, I know this is kind of dumb, but this is one of the things that I always talk about the software that I love. One of the things that I despise as a private money lender is dealing with insurance. It's
Okay.
just
Yeah.
it's not fun. Like
Right.
you issue a loan, you have a borrower, they provide you with proof of insurance to make sure that the property is secured against fire, flood, whatever. Oftentimes, those policies will lapse or expire, and so you have to chase after the borrower to go and get a new policy. Or you'll get a notice in the mail that says, "Hey, so and so canceled their policy," or whatever. And then again, you have to go chase after them. So one thing that I love that the system does is when a borrower uploads proof of insurance through their borrower portal, we have AI that goes in and scans that document and it pulls out the expiration date of that policy. And so when that policy is about to expire, the system knows that. There's not any intervention or user action that you have to do because it'll just send you an email that says, "Hey, this policy is expiring," and sends an email to the borrower and says, "Hey, FYI, you need to purchase insurance."
Mm.
And then if they kind of ignore it, then it'll send them, increased frequency of some more nasty grams. And then if it passes, then, you have the option to buy forced placed insurance or whatever, next action you take. But I had an experience last week actually where I got an alert where a policy expired 8 months sooner than I thought it would. And had I not had that, I completely would have missed it.
Yeah.
So just again, all of these just like menial, repetitive, like pencil pusher desk tasks that you have to do, you don't have to think about it anymore. It just so anyway, that's a word
Yeah.
salad of just a way of saying that the tool really does make your life so much easier.
Yeah. As if private lending wasn't such a profitable industry in itself. I mean, now it's even better
Right.
when you have a tool like this.
Yep.
Because we're talking earlier in the podcast, we're talking about your transition from rentals to flipping. From flipping, then you're like, whoa, this is crazy because we just lost money. The lender just made money. I need to like look at this angle. Um, and it's a absolutely beautiful business to be in. The biggest hurdle I've noticed throughout the years was what we're talking about is raising capital and also the time being spent shuffling around papers, figuring out where it's on your computer. I don't know. Is it on my Google Sheets? Is it on my Google? Where is it in Excel? Do I even have Excel? All these questions. Um, because a lot of lenders are not, um, not all, but a lot are just not that
Organized.
savvy and
Yeah.
organized. Right. Thank you. Exactly. They're not organized. And this, like myself, I mean, my goodness, this is something that I'd be super happy to be using for sure. So, um, okay. So we talked a lot about those things. This is really cool. Any features within your product that are fan favorites that people really love to use or yourself or any time saving features that lenders love?
Yeah, so I already talked about like the document generation, the insurance stuff. Those are my
Yeah.
personal favorites.
Okay.
I'd say one of like the fan favorites is we have an investor opportunities section.
Ah,
And so this is really nice because it allows you to market new opportunities to either current or prospective investors.
sure.
And so it almost sets up like basically like a pseudo website for you showing all of your deals and the breakdown of the deals. So say a new loan application comes in, $300,000, you don't have the capital to fund it. What you can do is you just go into the loan application, you just check a little box, and then what it'll do is it'll send out an email blast to all of your investors and saying, "Hey, we've got a new investment opportunity. Would you like to invest in it?" And then it writes up a description of the property. It shows you like the risk profile. It shows you the you know expected profit and the documents related to that specific loan. It shows you the borrower's like risk profile. It shows you how long they've been in business. It shows you their credit score. It shows you their cash on hand. Basically, all the different details of the borrower,
Wow.
so that when an investor goes in to look at this deal and says, "Should I fund this?" They have all the information right there ahead of them. They can see pictures of the property. They can see the scope of work. They can see the project breakdown line by line by line. So there's not this back and forth with all these questions between like, "Hey, does this borrower have this?" Or "Do they have, how long are they in business? And
That's a
what's this?"
nightmare. Yeah.
It is, and so you do that across 40 different investors. That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Whereas, look, it's just inside your portal. Oh yeah, you've got some extra capital. Cool. Go into your opportunities section inside your portal, and you can invest in whatever project you want to. So
Yeah.
I think that is definitely a fan favorite. People love that.
I could see that. Is there, if somebody wants to see this product in action, is there like a demo or anything that you could, or would you walk them through it or?
Yeah, either way. So we've got a demo just on our homepage. People can go to joinlendr.com.
Okay.
But we are, we do demos all the time with prospective customers. So people want to
Yeah.
kind of see like how it looks and the inner workings and how it may apply to your specific business.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a you can book a demo just right on the website, and we'd be happy to.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so I'll send people to that website. It'll be in the show notes as well. So join Lender, they can go and see how it works and if they want a little bit more, they just reach out to you folks and set
Yeah,
something
yeah,
up.
we probably do 3 to 4 different demos a day. So
That's
we're
great.
happy to. Yep, we're happy to walk you through the tool, and I mean, we're like, let's put it in a sample loan together, and see kind of how the flow works, and just kind of walk you through from start to finish, and show you all
Yeah,
the bells and whistles.
that's great. That is fantastic. Okay, that's wonderful. All right, so is there anything else besides that you'd like to talk about on your company and anything like that before we jump into kind of the mindset that it takes to become a successful entrepreneur?
No, like I said, we could be here all day because I get super excited about the tool, but I feel like I've kind of, beat the horse to death. So yeah, let's talk about mindset.
Well, it's all good, and my big encouragement for people is to go to your website at the very least, take a look at that demonstration as well, and I'm going to as well. So I think it's really exciting. And okay, so you've been in business now for how long? Or you've been like since 23, you were
I mean, I've
doing
been
this
I've
thing.
been peddling candy on the playground since I was a kid,
Uh,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I think I've been an entrepreneur at heart quite literally all my life.
Is
I've
that
always had
right?
some money making scheme or business or something of some sort my entire life.
You're just like me. I love that. That's great. So, throughout the years of doing these things, of just creating business, right? What do you think that like separates successful entrepreneurs? And I guess we can unpack what success means, but somebody who's doing well in business. So, like, what do you think of the difference between someone who's successful and someone who is always like kind of trudging through mud and they're never able to get that one thing going, you know?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I would say the biggest thing is people are, from what I've seen, is that people are paralyzed by indecision. And they feel like they need to have the best answer before they can move forward. And this is kind of what you talked about earlier. If people are
Yeah.
confused, they just
Yep.
they just freeze, they just halt. And maybe this is one of my like virtues or blessings or talents or whatever you want to call it. But I feel like somebody, by the time most people make a decision, I have made 6 decisions, 5 of which were probably wrong, but I failed, and I moved on to the next one and tried it and failed before anybody else has already done the first decision. And so I think making a decision and speed to action for me have attributed a lot to my success.
Ah, I see. So decision constipation is what you're saying is one of
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's a good way
major.
to put it.
Yeah. Because here's the what you just said, which is really interesting, is that you may make six decisions within the time frame it takes somebody to make one decision. However, you might fail five out of the six, but you're learning from those five out of the six as well and what not to do.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
So
So,
more often than not, there will be, if there's a decision placed in front of you, I think to myself, what is my best bad guess? Like, I don't have all the information. I don't know what we're gonna do, but this is my best bad guess. And the second thing I think to myself is there are very few things in this life that are super permanent that cannot be undone.
mm,
Very few. And so I usually go into business with those two ideologies and those two methodologies. It's like, A, we can probably undo this. And B, I would rather go down a path, figure out it's the wrong path, walk back, and then try a different one faster than, taking in all the data and just sitting here and waiting for this to kind of fester before we make a decision.
yeah, yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Okay. So you run, sounds like you have two businesses right now. Is that correct? So you have the
Correct.
lender and then you're also a private lender, right?
Correct. Yep.
How does that work as far as managing both of those companies and how are you allocating your time? How do you manage that time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very good question. In the past, so another thing that I'm focused on is as of late is the word focus and just like putting on my blinders and just like quite literally only doing this thing. I think
Yep.
entrepreneurs too often are like, ooh, shiny, let's try this new thing. And I
Yep.
have very much been guilty of that.
Uh-huh.
And so people would probably say, well, you're not really that focused if you've got two different businesses. I basically treat them as one business because they are so like aligned. So if somebody comes to me now and says, hey, Bryce, do you want to try this cool new crypto thing that I'm doing? I say, no, unless it is raising money, issuing loans, or building software, I'm not doing it. And
Sure.
my answer is no.
Yep.
And so my current time distribution, like I said before, is probably 5% private lending and 95% software. The software every single day we're, making code changes and adding features and, doing this and that. But my private lending company honestly does kind of run on autopilot at the moment. And so that's a very small focus of my day.
Which is encouraging for someone listening because they want their lending company to be running on autopilot a little bit as well, right?
Yeah.
And we just talked about how you can do that for the last 30 minutes. So, yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
there's always like degrees to it, right? Like it kind of ebbs and flows. And there may be time when like, okay, I need to kind of put more emphasis on this side to raise some capital and get some more deal flow and get a couple more borrowers in the door.
Sure.
So like I said, it's a teeter totter. There's a seesaw effect to it, but overall, for the most part, I would say primarily heavily focused on the software.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's great. All right. Fantastic. Okay. So I'm a big reader and I'm into books and podcasts. And that's why I started the podcast. One of the reasons I started the podcast is I listened to so many podcasts throughout the years. I'm really into it. Um, are there any books that have made a really big impact on your business, that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, the biggest one, which is it's definitely more common now, but it's "Buy Back Your Time" by Dan Martell. I
Oh
don't know if you've
yeah.
read
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. I have. Okay.
That one was after you read it, it's not. It's like, oh no, duh, I probably should have been doing this anyway.
Yeah.
But in the
Right.
beginning, you're like, one thing that he says is most entrepreneurs um, build a business that they grow to hate.
Mm,
And I have very much been guilty of that because you just like you get to this point where you're like, I am the only one in my business who can do this. I cannot offload this to somebody else, but I need to offload it to somebody else because I'm miserable and have no time.
yeah.
And it's true. You do. You learn to grow a business that you hate and you don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
So for me, that one was pretty transformational.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. All right, sounds good. I'll definitely read that. It's been a while. I think that's little bit of an older book, right? Or is that kind of a newer?
It's
Or
definitely
Dan,
it's definitely not a new
it's
book.
not. Okay,
But I would not old either.
because I'm trying to think if I read that book or not a couple years ago. Anyway, I'm going to get back to that. That's great because I need that. That's time management for me is a big. My wife is really good at it, and she always tells me I need to time block my day. right?
Yes.
Because I have my podcast, I have my conference, I also flip properties as well. And I do all these things and lending and all these like things. And also on top of that, I'm also guilty of the shiny objects. I mean,
Yes.
I'm a shiny object junkie. I just have to figure out how to stay away from all that stuff, right? And so she's like, you got a time block. Like the next 2 hours is just this, and you don't do anything else. You close all your browsers and all this. I'm like, it sounds so,
But I can't.
but
Yes.
yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that too.
Are you
Like,
okay?
but what happens if an email comes in? Like, I just
Yeah,
it's a problem for sure. I'm with you.
sure. All right, all right. Okay, so we talked about your product for a while now. What other marketing tools are you using right now to like any like email service provider or AI tools or anything like that that you're using to run your business that you can't live without?
Good question. Probably none that like would be new to the audience per se.
Yeah,
Everyone's familiar with ChatGPT, of course, and probably Claude. I actually rely a little bit more heavily on Claude than I do ChatGPT.
Claude.
Um,
Okay.
Claude has been really good, at least I feel like the code quality from a software engineer is quite a bit better, and so I've been using that. Um, one that I've recently been playing with is called Delphi.ai. I don't know if you've heard
Yeah,
of
I've
that
heard of
one.
that. Yeah.
It's very cool. You can basically clone yourself, or at least your online presence of yourself, which is really
Wow.
interesting.
Okay.
Um, and so like you can basically have it ingest podcasts and blogs and YouTube videos and all of these different data sources and books and whatever. And then honestly, sometimes it answers the questions better than I could answer it myself, but it still has your like persona attached to it,
Mm,
which is really cool. So sometimes I'll ask my cloned self questions, and like I said, it answers it better than I could. So
wow.
that's kind of a cool one I've been playing with as of late.
That's probably good for decision making, right?
It
Good.
is. It is. It's kind of nice to have like a second soundboard as you're trying to decision fatigue for sure.
Sure. Because people come to me for with questions on business or marketing or whatever having to do with business or life or whatever. And it seems to be that I give them such great advice. I mean, it really does. Like when I think about like, wow, whatever I just said was really good, but I can never seem to give myself that own advice, right?
Right.
Like I can see things on another perspective and really like dive into something pretty intricate. But then I'm like, "Oh, okay, I can't see it on my own self,
Yes.
but maybe this." You ask your clone a little bit
What to do? Yeah, in
what
this
to do.
situation. Yep. Yeah, it's so much easier to give other people advice, and more often than not, it's accurate, right? And it's correct.
Yeah,
And so,
sure.
yeah, you definitely have to like step out of yourself and be like, what advice would I give to myself if I
Mm,
wasn't me?
yeah, yeah. All right, this is great. So, okay, so someone's listening to this and they're interested in working with you. They're a private lender or a real estate investor. Um, what would be their next steps in wanting to learn more?
Yeah, I would say probably just go to our website, joinlender.com, and either that or shoot me a message on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Like I'm pretty active on all the different platforms. So
Yeah.
and yeah, if you just reach out and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, excellent. Well, we're gonna have to do another one. Maybe we'll do a demonstration on our podcast.
I'd love
I
it.
think that'd be
Let's do
great.
it.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. Well, thank you for your time, Bryce. And this has been great, and it's going to be a big benefit to all of the lenders out there that that are kind of doing this thing day to day with all the Google stuff out there, and like let's make a better change here. So
That's right. No,
yeah,
thanks for having me, and I can't wait to chat with some of the listeners of the podcast.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bryce. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon. Alrighty, bye bye.